Great.
Okay, so I guess it's our turn to introduce ourselves. So I'm Maya. That's my name. There's Maya. I think I just put her. Yeah, so I've been an early advisor of Women's Startup Lab. I've known Ari forever. And, you know, this is Ari's passion project. And I'm always amazed with her ability to hustle. So I make it a point to come back and support Women's Startup Lab as much as I can. And I'm an entrepreneur myself. I have my own startup, a couple of startups, worked at another startup that got acquired. And the past 2 years have been at larger companies. So I was at Amazon, and then just a week and a half ago, I moved to GoDaddy. GoDaddy is a seller of domain names. We do a lot more, but that's what we're known for. And I'm exploring new business opportunities at GoDaddy. So they hired me by telling me that you can start your own startup inside GoDaddy. What better, can we offer you? So you know, I'm always close to like small businesses, entrepreneurs, and then just whole shebang. My background is in technology and product management, and over time, so I have a master's in electrical engineering, so completely from engineering route. I did development for many years, and then I fell into my startup, after which I had to do other things and let go of just the engineering roles, right? Since then, I've done product development. I headed up, I don't know how many of you know Goodreads. Oh wow, that's amazing. So I headed up monetization at Goodreads. And Goodreads is an Amazon company. Goodreads was acquired a few years back. So again, that's much like a startup inside of a large company. That's what I did just before moving to GoDaddy. I'll stop there and then let Divya introduce herself, and then we can dive in to talk about.
I'm most of the things are very similar to Maya around being part of the startup and really working with startups. So I'm myself right now, I am an advisor to a couple of different startups. My background is more around machine learning and AI, and I head innovation garage for Johnson Controls, and it's like almost like an accelerator within a company, and there are like a number of different startups or products that we are working on. Before that, I had done my own startup that was acquired by Box. So, but again, it was a machine learning. Thank you, machine learning startup. So more of it comes from more technical products rather than and more business to business kind of things. And I think right now some of the products may be used by the users at the end, but still, like I think from the way I look at things, is more enterprise products kind of. So that's my background. Again, it's been mostly technical, like engineering, and that's where I've just grown and made it broader. But
and the funny story is, I think Divya just reached out to me on LinkedIn. She was like, I want to give back to the startup community and figure out how to do this. Of course, and then we just went back and forth and we met, and I invited her here because, she's very complimentary. We're both technical, but we were just sitting down talking about, what startup would we work on if we were to do it today. And her ideas were like this and mine were like this. But I think we'll get along, right? Because I think that's what really matters, bringing diverse perspectives. And of course, I'm always trying to rope in anybody that wants to give back and get involved in the startup lab. So
yeah, I think, being there, done that, I know you can use any help that you can get, everything is important, and I know how difficult sometimes it can get, and if any of my experiences or anything can really help somebody, I'm all for it, and that's the only. And when Maya said that this is there and we can do it, I was like, yes, I would like to definitely come here and share my experiences. If it can make any difference, then that's good. So welcome.
And thank you. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah, so, when you were all talking, the thing that occurred to me over and over again is that, of course, you're all early but you seem to be fighting these battles alone. So it makes a lot of sense that you're here. The startup path is lonely, but then that's one thing I took away, right? The second big takeaway for me is like women, we tend to work on things that are closer to our heart. And it always, as much as that's what keeps us in the game, it's the one that, it's harder to pull money in. We're by ourselves, and it's not the latest, hottest thing, right? So it's that much harder to like just get investors in. And it's clear from like all of you, I think your heart is in what you're doing, but there's work to be done to get to the next level, right? Yeah, and so, and finally, I couldn't help but notice, because it's happened to me a lot, continues to happen to me, is that just we're like deer, against headlights. Like we have so much going on, and then it gets hard to focus. So I heard a lot of like, I'm doing many things, but it's a hard path, and focus and determination is really key. So I think that's something that I continue to struggle with, because we're entrepreneurs, we get excited. We get passionate about something, we get excited about all the different things to do. But that's, so with that, I kick off with this 5-point deck, which is really, which is really helpful to tell our story. And we'll start with that, and then we'll just dive into questions. So maybe this will take 5 or 10 minutes, and then we can spend more time like answering your specific questions. And this is more kind of fun, just meant to like get us rolling on what I think is really, really key, and based on my experience, of course. That's limited. So we'll go from there. So this is, having done the startup, this is like what really, really matters while we're on that startup journey, and how do we get from one stage to the next as we go, right? And that early stage lasts longer than we think for most companies, right? Success always looks like overnight success when success is realized, but it takes a while, and so don't get discouraged. So this is like the first thing. I think like the first and most important thing for me, and that you should jump in at every stage. Just telling your story. I mean, I heard all of you. I think you all have your own stories buried in what you're doing, right? But the key is like, how do you continue to tell that story, but make it really terse and tie that into like the business value as soon as you can. But it's always important to kick off with that story. Like my startup was a children's book reading app and a publishing platform at the back end. So for me, that story really set me aside from anybody else who was doing that. If I just told that story, like it was for me, I was a software developer. I had kids of my own, and I moved across the country. I quit my job and moved across the country, and then all these devices, like the iPad was taking off like crazy, and I always wanted to write children's books. So I just put the two together, and I created a community and threw these things on a website. My kids loved the stories, but nobody was reading, right? And then it was like, oh, these iPads are taking off. On a weekend in a hackathon, I got with other people and created this app and put it out in the App Store, and it just like took off, right? But then at the core of it is like, why am I in this, and what will keep me going and going is that mission of like getting kids to love reading, because at the core, I come from a culture where storytelling is the center of everything, and that's how I've grown up, right? But being able to say that, and tell your story very quickly and saying, like, it's not just me emotional, but that makes sense. You know, we use stories for everything. Storytelling is the center of everything. And my kids are here, and why shouldn't they read stories from around the world? Why should they just get the stories that they have access to? I mean, in today's world, it makes complete sense whether your kid would, you have a child with autism or you have a child that looks different anyway, they should be able to read lots of stories about children like themselves or anything, right? So in today's world, it makes no sense, right? So I learned over time very quickly, own that story and be able to tell it. So that's really key. But my takeaway from all of you is as you get closer and closer to that idea, you'll center in on being able to tell that story really, really precisely. And so, like work towards that is key. And see what you bring that's unique, right? Your story shouldn't, like you have to really soul search because it's really true. Like if you don't have a story in there, then you can't survive this hard path. So you're nodding.
Yeah, no, I think it is definitely because to relate to somebody's problem, especially when you're going and you're trying to sell somebody something, the biggest thing is that that person should be able to relate to you, and the best way to be able to relate to you is when you really bring that authenticity and like your real pain into it and saying that this is what is a problem that I'm trying to solve because it's not. And when they're able to relate to the problem, everything else falls in place. So having that clear story on why it is important to you, why you actually felt that this is something that happened, it always helps because you are able to relate to it.
Yeah.
So having that story.
And it doesn't matter where, right? Like even at GoDaddy, my heart is in small business. And if I can save them time, save them money, let them sleep peacefully at night, because running your own business is super hard. At the end, that's soul searching for me because I know how hard it is to run your own small business, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're growing a business. You have so many things to do. You have to do the thing that's most important. And so, working with influencers at Blogger, my other job, I'm so close to that. So that's the story I own, and that's the story I even tell myself every day because that's why I'm in it, right? So that's the first thing.
We're gonna
Totally.
Q&A or
Oh, I have let's go through this and then we can.
yeah, okay.
Second thing is keeping it real and owning it. My husband was my co-founder. He had a full-time job, but I can tell you he did shit ton of work, like more than any other designer could have done. He woke up at 5 o'clock. He'd go through the list I'd assign him, and he would do everything. He'd leave home by 8. And he'd meet me at the co-working space after work. We had an au pair. And, we'd work our time out so that we'd get overlap time, and we'd work for a couple hours, and then we'd go home, right? So that's a reality. I was proud of that we were able to do that, and we even snagged date nights once a week. Right? So that was really awesome. But the point there is, a lot of investors will tell you, oh, we don't fund, you're almost a single founder, oh, husband and wives, oh, whatever. You can say all you want. You like to give an excuse, you can give it, right? And look at my numbers, look at my traction, and look at why I'm in this, and make your decision. And so don't let somebody keep it real, right? I never hid the fact. Of course, I didn't tell them it's my husband, but you have a co-founder, or even if you're a single founder, sure, I'm a single founder. I'm getting work done. Like Ivy, who's Love with Food, she's the founder of Love with Food, and she was in the same batch as my company at 500 Startups. She was a single founder. Like she would chase, she would chase like TechCrunch, one of the writers at TechCrunch, she chased her into the bathroom. She told her story, and she was like, "It's the only way I could get 5 minutes with you." So that's like the pros of being a woman, right? Like there's very few in the bathroom. All right, I'll chase you down, right? And so there's so many other things you can focus on. So like keep it real, but don't let them take you down. So that was. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to be able to identify what is missing and what is not missing. Like when it is real, like maybe yes, you do have a handle on everything, but in case if there is somebody that you need, just make it. For me, keep it real means like making it like yes, you have all the right passion and right energy and everything. And sometimes it just happens that even though people are telling you something which is really a missing point, we are not listening, but that's also something which we have to make sure that we are keeping it real in that sense too, that yes, it's not perfect, there might be something that we need to do to improve it. So I think keeping both sides of real is important.
Yeah, not getting on the defensive too. It's like, and telling yourself that, right? Sure, it's not the best situation to be co-founders with your husband because, logically, when you think about it, there's so many things that can go wrong, but it only made our marriage stronger. But nobody cares about that, like, right? but my point is, like, sure, yes, but event right? Husband, wife founders. There's so many examples out there. It's not so hard to find examples, and so sure, you can say yes, but and give them example, or they say you don't have a typical person on the team. Sure, I don't, but this is how I'll figure it out, right? So that's really important. I like to keep this for attitude. It's just like own it. To your point, know your strengths and own it, because there's a lot you won't know. But really, focus on the things that you know and keep repeating that to yourself and let other people see it. That ties in with, what's your story? What do you bring to this that's unique that nobody else can bring? So it goes from story to real skill. Like, what can you execute on that will make this a success, right? Because story doesn't make success. Translating the story into action and doing something that will do that will move your metrics is what matters, right? That's what impact means. So translating action to impact. When you know all of that, attitude, totally matters completely. Like it might feel like a shithole, but attitude, like it matters because we know that's the difference between men and women too.
Yeah, no, and even in other things, right? Like if the person themselves are not confident enough about what they're selling or what they're saying, how can you imagine somebody else who you're selling it to will be confident in you? So you have to be like double or triple of what you're feeling just to make sure that the other person can actually let you take the lead and can follow you. So it's very important to have that whole attitude and confidence that yes, I can do this and I will be able to make it a success. It's important.
And I lost this. I don't know what happened, but I had only two more. I remember those. The other one was, know your numbers. Right? It's just as joke where somebody's counting. But know your metrics, right? Know how big the market is. Know do your homework. Really do your homework because, and I'll tell you, that's the answer to a lot of the questions that some of you have. If you have two things that your heart is in on, I know, go with whatever you can make a bigger difference on, but you should also know, like, how big is this market? What's the potential? And you should know, early on, you will move very small metrics, right? Look at 100 users. But if 50 of them use it, that's a 50% conversion rate, right? And 25 of the 50 come back, within 1 week. That's like, again, 50% conversion rate. So, you don't have to have big numbers, but you need to know what does your funnel look like? You did a test with 200 users. It doesn't really matter. Watch and see how many come back day after day after day. That shows you how valuable you are, and that lets you, extrapolate the data that you have, but you need to start getting that data as soon as you can, right? And it just have that hardcore focus on data and be able to talk to that, because you have to very soon transition from your story to this is what I did, this is what I saw, and this is what it's going to be. You have to have it so crisp, right? So I didn't hear a lot. You all are pretty early, but I didn't hear a lot of data coming out, right? And it's hard, but have one North Star metric is like, what's that one metric that you think matters, right? And just track it like your life depends on it, because it does, right? And have 3 other metrics that you're going to track day after day after day. And really, really focus on that, because it's such an emotional journey that some of those things will tell you which idea should you work on, what should you let go, or it might even be that in the short term these are showing a dip, but we'll go beyond this, we'll persist, and the numbers will start to improve. Whatever that is, right? There's more science to that, but make sure you identify, use use help to figure out what those metrics are. Do you have anything?
But I'm a data person, so I love data. It's like, yes, the more data, the better it is always. Definitely, and getting the data will also help you find your differentiation, because when you're trying to, segment the population, the people that, or the users or customers and everything, and when you're trying to get the data, it will really give you that thing that this is what is missing and this is what I'm targeting. So your differentiation, when you're not really able to figure out where am I different or what is the thing that I'm bringing, all of those things will really help you just make it more crisp and focus and make it happen. So getting those numbers are very important.
Yeah, and then you also realize what is the industry struggling with, right? With my app, for example, I didn't have huge numbers. Had really good growth, but not massive numbers. I think finally we hit 300,000, or 500,000 app downloads. But you start to realize a lot of people, you can buy app downloads. Can you not buy? You can buy engagement. There's only a certain extent to which you can buy engagement. And then as I started to learn that, I was like, oh, I need to really look at, engagement and see the session times. And when I looked at that, it was way off the charts, right? When you look at industry standards and what I had, it was amazing. To such an extent that my investors wanted me to open Flurry and show it to them. Wow, you really have this kind of active user base with these kinds of session times. So you have to see hey, what is this doing? And then, so for example, you have not a big user base, but you have great session times. Maybe, your next step is to deep dive and understand who are these kids and why are they spending so much time? And maybe it'll tell you where to focus on your growth next step, right? That's a little more evolved, but start with establishing, the metrics that you need, and then going after it day after day. Even when you share updates on LinkedIn, or I'm looking at those, you share updates. When you share numbers, it just, people are like, wow, because they pay attention to that. And once you do that, none of the other stuff really matters, because those are all excuses that they give. When you start to show that up and to the right, people can't ignore it, right? So that's what your focus should be on. The final one is, it's Tom Cruise saying, help me help you. It's just really, when you ask for help, make it easy on the people who should help. Be very specific and ask for help. And if you have a specific question, it's okay, be persistent. And everybody has limited time, but everybody has good intentions. Don't take it personally, and make your ask very clear. So, and then I say this because I think a lot before asking for help, even after all these years. But then again, when I think back to, when I was a founder, I'd reach out to all kinds of people, asking them all kinds of stuff. And now I think, wow, how did I even do that? But on the other hand, even that took effort, right? But you can just send a very specific question, or make it clear, make it easy for people to help you, and then most often they will. Or if they can't, and give them an out. If they can't help, sure, that's fine. Ask them for who else do you think could help, right? Yeah. So, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think that's very important. In fact, this thing that yesterday night I was telling this to my kids. I was saying, asking for help is also a skill. Right?
Oh my gosh, it's the biggest skill.
And it's very important for you to learn that, because you cannot do everything on your own, and you would need help throughout your life, throughout everything that you're doing. And don't just assume that, people will come and help you. They want to, but they really don't know. So what she's saying is, if you can really make it easy and ask for what you are really looking for at that point, it will just make your life easier and things move faster, and for everybody else too. But it's very important to ask for help. Like, you cannot do everything on your own. So wherever you think that you need help, that's fine. Go and find a person and ask for help. It is important. And even if it is not Chris, I will say that it's okay to be vague in the beginning, because it will help you get to a point where you know exactly what you're looking for. So, but if you know that you need help, that's the most important thing. Go ask for it.
Yeah, and true. No. I disagree, but I think we should be, you guys are already so hard on yourselves, so you don't need to be much harder on yourselves, but it's a crowded space. There are lots of startups out there, and so we need to set our standards high. And it's very easy to make that entry and say, I'm doing a startup, right? But then people see persistence, people see data and numbers, and as they get into that loop and they start to see you're making progress, they're more motivated to help you. So, some of that first few things, like being in touch and making sure you keep them updated with your progress, is important. And then also, and when you do that, it's much easier to loop them in and ask for help and ask for introductions, because I've spent so much time trying to make connections with influencers, but also with investors, right? And just, and I asked for help. Lisa Stone, she introduced me to several of her investors. And then I reached back up to her and I said, I'm exhausted. Thanks for all the intros, but I don't think it's like I'm able to raise $500,000. I can't raise more, but I really need to raise more. So I'm just going to take like a couple of weeks break, but I'll let you know, right? And then she calls me back and says, well, you can come and help me with a product, consulting gig I have in my company. And I go there and I really enjoy it for 2 weeks. And then a few months later, I was heading product in her company. And then we got acquired. And she's like, you're a startup person and I need somebody like you. It was great. But my story there is that, I kept in touch with her. And she's a startup veteran herself. And, it just works out that way. But if I hesitated to ask her for help, I wouldn't have built that relationship. So that's really like that, but I think we should dive into some of your questions. I think the introduction was really comprehensive. Sorry, we just, it's a,
Well, as I was listening to you, with the first slide, I will tell you a story. As women, I think we always have this negative component. Whenever a woman is like very aggressive in something, you're bitchy, and that's something that happened to me all the time. Because the story behind my startup, Boss TV, is not necessarily a very optimistic and happy one. Boss TV was born with the frustration of me being a producer, sports producer in the Latino market, and looking at how we create this beautiful product that was easily watched by a lot of people, but was not put out there because the executives decided the Latino market is not relevant. So I came into this point that I had this big argument with my vice president that ended up not being very happy ending. when I said the fact that you don't know how it works, I mean that in the market doesn't mean it's broken. It just means you don't know how it works. I know how it works. Let me do my job. He's like, no, I'm not giving you any more budget. You know, you have to translate this content. And I said, Latino market would not like a translated product. You have to create an original product for them. So long story short, I said, you know what? I'm gonna do my own thing. And
I don't see why that's negative at
I
all.
think you're
But
right.
that's a positive story.
But my co-founder is my husband. And he's like, no, that's too negative. Don't say that. It's too negative. You're gonna be seen. We're so like a whoopee couple and like,
No, so in fact, I would say that, like you're saying, this is actually a very good story because you're basically saying that you identify a gap in the market that you're trying to fulfill. And you can say that, and you are the person to identify them because you were in a position, like if you ask me, I don't know that there is such a gap or what they're going to like, but you have seen the numbers because you were in that position where you were doing all that. So you actually bring that expertise from your previous experience, and you have identified this gap, which the company is not willing to fulfill. And even if they try to fulfill after you are doing it, it will take them some time or whatever. So like having that story, I think, is the biggest positive thing that you can say, that I come from this background, I've seen the numbers, they're not doing it, so it is my chance to go ahead and solve this problem.
And you don't have to make the story that personal, right? Because it's a small world. Like, you know, you don't have to make it like, oh, I told my boss, whatever. But the point here, the overarching story here is that, you know, you, in your role, like in big companies, right, they don't always realize like the core need. But you have data saying the market is, it's booming, right? I have a lot of influencer friends in the Hispanic market, and they're just, it's booming. Like everybody's understanding the purchasing power of that, you know, that market. So there's lots of numbers you can share, but it's also from your own experience, you know that, you know, translated content doesn't work, and you tried to do it within a big company. You were not able to, and you were brave enough to step out and do it on your own. You know, that's your story. So it's just a little bit of, you know, you don't have to talk about what your boss said. It's just, but that's your story, and that's what you should own.
I'm finding it's easier for people to be naysayers than to acknowledge that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually they don't understand because it's innovative. So they'll be naysayers instead.
Yeah, and that's the reason, you know, these are all just things you learn over time. Sure, you don't know, you don't have to agree, but data says this. I don't know, I believe it, and data says it. That's all. That's all you have to say, right?
Yeah, I think, and that's why the data becomes important, right? Because if it's just like you say and I'm saying, and it's like, you know, nobody.
It's all opinions, right?
Yeah,
It's
so
all
you
opinions,
have to
sure.
back it up, and if you have something that is backing up your intuition or your feeling or whatever passion, that's what it is, right? Like, and then you have a stronger case in that case.
I got into a point that I said 98% of Latino men are sportsmen. And you said that we don't have ratings. There, I mean, content is there, market is there, the delivery is the one that's wrong. And they said, you know what you're saying is we have to change the model, the way we do things, like we have to get rid of all this big building. I'm like,
well, that's why big companies cannot be innovative. That's the reason big companies cannot be innovative, and that's why you're doing it, you know, your own. And so, yeah, we.
My oldest would be like into theory with my very well laid out plans. I mean, and I'm the graduate of the Women Startup Lab Batch 12. In fact, for the next 3 days, we're getting together in this house. Yes, we're bringing the food for our things. But I run a company called Palu. And my story is, I, as a mom of 2 kids, including one with special needs, I have an autistic child, I felt very underserved by technology. Like nobody is building crap for me. They're building stuff for millennials and students and businesses, but not for moms and dads. And yet we control 80% of the spending, spending $550 billion in the US alone, and nobody's building stuff for us. The specific problem that my app solves is coordination problem within families. So just as I coordinate with my husband or other caregivers, like who's picking up which kid when, and what do we need from grocery store. The fact that I need 5 different apps plus email, calling, and texting is just not okay. So we built this app called Calro. It's now live on both iOS and Android.
How do you spell it?
CALROO. It's a completely free app. So it's going well. The catch is, and the question is, the investors don't view this space as attractive. And I can't manufacture exits that don't exist in my industry. They're not talking in general about family tech, right? Clearly there are companies that were successful in family tech, but they're talking specifically in family productivity or family collaboration. Because our most direct competitor, Cozy, had a very modest exit.
I was going to say
the amount that the investors invested in it, right? And there were a couple of exits in the $100 million range in the general productivity space, but not family specifically. And then Life 360 raised nearly $100 million, but it's not exactly viewed as a smashing success, by investors. So, so I'm in this market that investors just don't view as very attractive. And so I'm basically working on getting my numbers to go up and to the right, whereas it doesn't matter what, other people have done, right? It doesn't mean that we cannot succeed because we have a unique approach to the market. But in the meanwhile, is there anything that I can say to convince people who are like, show me a company that had $1 billion exit in your space?
Are you driving any revenue?
No, it's a free app, deliberately so, because we're really working on improving one thing at a time, which is engagement and retention.
And how is the engagement?
We're working on it. I know the numbers, they're not compelling in and of themselves yet, which is why, again, I can't yet do the ta-da, and here is my off-the-charts engagement metrics. But I know them by heart to 2 decimal points, and that's exactly what I'm working on. The app is new, we're at less than a month old. So.
Yeah, but so it's that early, you have to give it a little time. But there are lots of experiments that you can do on the side, and to tell yourself, right? Like, what is the path for success? Whether it's quantitative, qualitative.
That part is clear to me. I know what I need to do. My only issue is funding, and in particular when it comes to VCs, specifically saying, I don't believe in this market.
I think, so what kind of VCs or investors are you going for? Because sometimes it's very, very important to understand, that match also is very important. If you're not going to the VCs who are in general, investing in these kind of apps, then it will be very difficult for you. So sometimes, what you have to do is, and then again, right, maybe there are other options like crowdfunding or angel funding or something like that. I don't know how much you're trying to raise and what are the needs. Can you cut it down into I absolutely need this much of funding right now to get to this stage, and then once I'm in this stage, I can definitely show so much more. So some of those things might be helpful.
So to answer your question, I am very specifically targeting super early stage investors who invest in that stage in consumer apps, including in the family space. And again, they're not debating family tech, they're debating my specific industry. It just so happens that I'm pretty passionate about it, and I will either succeed or die try, and I vote to succeed. Speaking of crowdfunding, I am launching a crowdfunding campaign on May 7th on WeFunder, which is the biggest equity crowdfunding platform, because I got just sick and tired of talking to VCs. So we love you, we love the idea, we just don't love them.
No, that was my point. If you can survey parents and say X% of them are willing to pay, right? Or if the crowdfunding is a success, you're able to bridge you over. A lot of very successful companies start with crowdfunding these days. But also, you might want to spend a little time talking to investors that are not in that market, that understand, like ML and AI, which wasn't a thing a few years ago. Really, is there a story there? Do they understand that these, family productivity can be improved because of tools like this or new innovation and technology like this? Do you have a story there? Is there a bigger vision there? And then go after people who haven't been jaded by that space and who are just really, we're not troubled. Like when I was talking about my startup, there were a lot of investors who hated just crowdfunding content, right? Because they they had bad experiences. Look at YouTube. You know, it's like crowdfunded content, and it's crowdfunded content everywhere now, right? And a lot of people don't get it, but then you have to find a different kind of investor. So maybe you have to be a little creative in who you talk to, and find, you know, also force yourself to tell the story about how are you going to do it. Because yes, Cozy didn't have a big exit. Everybody knows that. I think Life 360 is starting to do some things different. Like we've been using, like, I use Life 360. I used it forever.
Do you pay for the premium version?
No,
or you just do
no.
the See, I've yet to meet a single person who is paying for
I
the
don't.
premium version.
Exactly. So I know that they're trying other things, right? But so maybe, you know, the Googles are in that space, right? We have access to a lot of free tools, but maybe there's a difference right there. And I do think we think too hard about, like, who are the investors in this space, but they're also, you know, investors are not deep in it, right? And once they're stuck with a frame of mind, they're just going to stick to it. So you have to meet somebody that's different, who believes in you, and maybe that's different from you.
Can we talk, since we're talking about investing, could you talk, oh, great.
No, I was just gonna say that actually that's a very good point, because investors also want to expand their portfolio into different things. So even if they haven't looked into this one particular space, and if there is something that they do want to do it in that particular space, or at least have something in there. So I guess what you're saying absolutely makes sense, that you might try like very different investors who might like talk to them just casually first, see if there is an interest, and then go and then talk to them a little bit more seriously. So that.
Do a half-day brainstorm with other founders who are doing something completely different, and see, you know, that might be a little bit of a for your startup, but I think it would be a good one if you can.
There's also a crowdfunding, you may have already heard of it, called I Fund Women. We just started, well, we didn't just start, but we've got ours on there right now. And I'm still determining how effective it's going to be. They rely a lot on their personal network, which mine's already tapped out. They're so burnt out in my company. Because I've had to rely on them a lot for funding already. But I had to kind of push back this morning with them about, like, we need a campaign higher up. You know, you're highlighting already funded companies. But so I'm not doing an official recommendation. They're just making you aware. Yeah, it's called I Fund Women. It's a crowdfunding platform specifically for women.
I heard of it as in fact a couple of days ago it came up, but I'm going with WeFunder because they have, you know, the companies there have raised, you know, over $50 million.
Yeah,
And this is regulation crowdfunding. So this is the non-accredited investors, where for very modest investment amounts you can have people participate in order to be around. And I'm targeting $1 million. I'm going all in.
Have you also talked to any strategic investment? Anybody?
Okay, in general, I find that, you know, I either fundraise or build a product, and like it's hard to be
That's
private, you know, with fundraising. It's like you're either all in or all out, and I'm just so sick and tired of asking people for money and trying to convince them of things. That's why I'm going the crowdfunding, you know, thing, because I really do believe in the vision. And I do believe that we have a unique approach to the market, and we're a unique team. Like how many Stanford PhDs and psychologists do you have right on founding teams? I haven't had one. And so anyway, so the point is that we are unique in the market, and I'm tired of talking to these pattern recognition beasts. They're like,
Yeah.
tell me you are X for Y.
That's what I mean by, like, you know, people will put you in a box as soon as you say family of productivity, and I think you need people to, like, just come at you with a different.
So from this discussion, I was wondering if I could just get your general view. So, you know, this is a parallel I see in the art world and like any place you create. So when you create, like, I come as an artist, my spouse is like a startup guy. So first we couldn't talk, right? Then I said, look, when you have your idea in the nascent stage, you need to protect it. And I find that whenever you start having to pitch and put, you know, numbers, those are all good, important parts of analysis. But when you start bringing investors in and they start sort of mess with your idea or put things in your head? Because I know it's easy to say, oh, I don't care, I believe in it. But every time you hear no, or why something wouldn't work, or how 5 other people who are doing this didn't work, what is your view of like, I call it creating a safe space. Like, what is your view or strategy of protecting your idea in the early stages as you are navigating and also verifying should you work on it? You know what I mean? Like kind of a,
According to me, there's no protecting your idea. I mean, I spent hours with like investors who rolled out a very similar product to mine. Just, they wanted to know everything. And then a few months later, they had their own product. Like, yeah, there was just like, that. There's no protecting. Right?
Yeah, and the thing is, ideas, I think you can have a lot of ideas and there will always be people having similar ideas. Like, it's never a way, it's how you execute, how you really bring the differentiation, how you reach the whole business aspect of it. Those are the things that really matter. And my experience has been, like, the more you talk, the better your idea actually become, because in the beginning it is very, wide and but the more you talk, the more feedback you get, the better you become at it, the better your story becomes, better everything. So I would always suggest people to really go and, like, you cannot protect an idea.
let me clarify. I don't mean protecting your idea, like not telling people what you think, but protecting the space as you're growing and building the idea. You know, like, what is the right time to go for investment? Like, when do you know that this is the time that I should go ask for money or
Yeah, I think definitely, like, at least these days, like definitely 15, 20 years back, maybe, even the ideas, like right now, people want to see way more than just like, they want to see some product, they want to see some users of using it, not revenue maybe a little bit later, but even for seed funding, even for like in the beginning, like, it needs to be in a little bit more developed phase. At least that's
Yeah, if
my
money comes to you,
experience.
take it.
Yeah.
If money comes to you, take it. But if you're going to go out there and get money, then, you should, it takes you away from other things you could do. And you should be taking that idea forward if you can't do it. So just focus on that. And then, raise money when you really need to, but build those relationships on the way, because you can't build the relationships right away. And they'll see, and let them watch your progress, and then they'll be ready to put money down when you need the money. So there's a little bit of, art and science to that. But if your husband's in the startup space and he has a lot of people who want to give money, take it, right? So that's it. No, but that's the thing. That's just my personal. Yeah, because as soon as you take money,
That's right.
it also doesn't go as far as we think it will. So
Yeah, you don't get the luxury of really working and making it something that you want once you take the money.
That's
You
what
get,
I was saying.
It's very restricted. You have those, again, those like board meetings and milestones and everything else that you have to worry about. But, at every stage there are different needs and requirements, and at times there are needs where you definitely need funding because you have to build a team, you have to use marketing, you have to reach out. There can be various reasons. I would say that go for funding when there is a reason, like, and you know exactly how you'll be using that money, because it just helps you a little bit more rather than just saying that, let me get the
yeah, and
money.
also don't take just any money.
Excuse me. Person.
Okay.
Hi.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't catch names. Our train was like late. It was.
Oh, welcome.
So if I'm hearing, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is, how do you protect the core integrity of your idea as you bring in other people who have a vested interest to manipulate or adjust or change course, like investors or members? So that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think it's twofold. So what I always say is that a startup is a balance between perseverance and pivoting. And you have to know what you are going to pivot on and what you're going to persevere on. And I know, like, a long time ago, and when she was talking about specific question, I still remember the person was like, I need help. And she was like, wait, what? And I was like, I don't know. And so I kind of like, that ended there because I didn't know at the time. So it's to see the growth from where we're at today. The biggest thing is like, well, the integrity of the core idea has maintained. There have been significant ways that we've pivoted. The business model is entirely different. In fact, we just changed it the last 3 months, and it makes so much sense, and it's way more crystallized. But I think you need to know who you can trust and talk to, and be able to take their input and say, okay, when am I hearing the same patterns again? When am I hearing people say, well, actually, if you monetize it this way, you're going to actually have better opportunities because of X, Y, and Z. And if you get 2 or 3 of your most trusted people who have the most engagement with the company saying that, then you can pivot around that area while still maintaining the perseverance and the core integrity on that side. So sometimes it's being able to say, I was not necessarily wrong. Sometimes you have to be able to say you're wrong, but also to be able to say, actually, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
And there's ways to test all of this in small ways. Like, you know, you can put your product out there, test it with 10 people. Like, you can do so many things. But I completely agree. Like, you have to be open enough to take that feedback and learn from people out there, but also know, like, what kinds of things you want to do. You know, to Alice's point, like, I would never put animation in my app. You won't put it. Because we're about linear storytelling, where kids use their imagination. There's enough like stuff to make us ADD. I'm not going to put animations where they stop listening to the story, and just because it's a cool thing out there. So I was like hardcore. Like even today, I would never do it. And there are companies like Disney spending $100,000 on one app that went nowhere. It looked cool, they got featured, but it went nowhere, and kids didn't care, right?
So need the imagination from the child.
Yeah, so like you know what things you won't change versus what you will.
I had a woman say to me once, beware entrepreneur whiplash. Because like at this point I can be pulled in so many more directions if I allow myself to be, and just running in circles with just advice from people being from.
That's what I mean, right?
Yeah, so many directions.
And a lot of times people won't tell you, oh, you need help with that. I can't help you, but somebody else can. They won't tell you that.
Yeah.
They'll try to give you stuff,
Totally.
like whatever. They'll try to say whatever they can say, especially investors, because they have like a little bit of knowledge from everywhere, and you need to get smart enough to like hear that. You know, and the more you know about your space, the more you know when somebody's just like bullshitting you, right? And so just learning that and go into every conversation knowing what you want out of it, like the outcome, right? First, yes, you want to build a relationship that eventually turns into money, and then you want to build more relationships as a result of that meeting. Maybe those are your top goals, and if that person's very knowledgeable, you want to learn, right? So just go with like, these are my top goals, and this is the outcome of this meeting. If it doesn't turn into money, I'll learn. And you'll very soon know it's not turning into money. Are you learning? You're not really learning. Let me get out of here because your time is up, right? And I learned to figure that pattern out. And some people, I told them everything about my startup, every single thing, how I built everything, because I was learning. And there were other times when I knew what was happening, and it's like. And some people just, they're not doing it, they're passionate about the space, and they just want storytelling or something. Like, they're like vicariously, like, want to, like, yeah, you find all kinds of people. But the more you focus and know what you want, you're able to read those.
Yeah, no, I think as a founder, as an entrepreneur, it is, and your company, I think that is why you're doing it, right? Like, you know the most, and you should be able to make the decision when feedback is important and makes sense, and when it doesn't. So that's the balance that you have to really do it yourself. That yes, everybody will be telling you everything that they know or whatever. It's up to me on what I don't need and ignore, and what I actually take back and use it. So
I think it's like
it's your, I would say it's one of the part of being in that position to be able to do that and make better decisions about it.
I was just gonna say, being adult women in technology of the field, you kind of have training, because everybody feels like they can tell you what you should do. If you just straighten your hair, you get that job. You just, wore more of that. If you just did that, you smiled more. If you were just quieter, and if you just spoke up more, but this way, I mean, you constantly hear feedback. So I think you're kind of doing it day to day. You're editing anyway. And I guess you have to just have the confidence to do that in your ideas.
I mean, you have to go into every conversation knowing what the outcome
Yeah.
should be, your goal is, because your time is important.
So when you did your app, so my We Search Beauty, we rely on crowdsourcing, right? Where everyone gives their opinions about how makeup looks for them. So we're putting it out there. We're obviously doing some marketing. We're doing some events and so on. But when you put your app out there, what happened? Did it magically take off and someone found it? Or did you start telling friends and family? Or how did that
No,
start?
nothing magically takes off. It was one of the early apps in the kids' education space, so it wasn't as crowded. However, I built my community from ground up, and the day the app launched, I had like 5 or 6 bloggers post about it. And, I made sure several people went and reviewed the app right away. And all of that, kind of comes together in creating that wave. And that was definitely very, very, very important.
So you had the reviewers ready to go.
Yeah. And those were all not paid reviewers. These were people who were education bloggers, like parent bloggers, people who really had community and who believed in what I did. And because I had no money for marketing, that was my way to, I had a parent board. And so, they spread the word. So it's very crowded out there. I mean, how hard is it to, like it's not hard, right? So there's so much noise out there. So I use that. I know several people do early Facebook marketing, but I don't know if it's as important now. It probably is more important, but to just build up the pace when you launch the app. So you can pre-launch it to a set of influencers, build that space, build that momentum, and then get it out there. It's really hard. Attention. I mean, everybody is ADD, right? These days, it's just so much technology out there. That you could also do, paid marketing, events. It's definitely a struggle. Yeah. You could do partnerships with larger companies if there's an opportunity. Like there's an app called Rita. It's like started by, I don't know who exactly, but it's just support Vita. Vita, yeah. And they work with eBay. I think, all like eBay employees get like free access to that. And it's kind of life coaching, diet planning, it's all of those kinds of things. But it's offered like, because my husband works at eBay, and you can see you have free access to that. And it's very clear that it's done to like move their numbers. So there's a way to do that, because it sounds like the more data that people add, the more valuable the app becomes, right? Yeah, so that's kind of how you drive the flywheel. Yeah, and maybe you could test with a little bit of paid marketing to learn. No magic bullet. And you can always partner. I don't know if there's like snack market. Early on, and people get very invested, and they want to help. So building those relationships with influencers, bloggers goes a long way.
We've got some micro bloggers on our team right now. So.
Yeah. I think that you are a very busy person, both of you, everyone. So I think that we might have to end. But
We're here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but just so you guys can kind of break, so you can it's 2:15 almost. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was incredible. Thank you all for being here.
My email is just m@thinkmaya.com. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn too.
I'll find you.
No, this is AI ML.